Hello everyone and welcome to WGBS TV Live, brought to you by SupermanHomepage.com, the number one Superman fan site in the world. In this, our June 9th, 2020 show, we're going to be covering a range of topics, including The End is Nigh from Michael Bendis. His run on Superman comics is coming to an end. We're going to be talking about stuff happening in the comic books and so much more. We're also going to be turning to you to answer your questions and refer to your comments as the show goes on. And to let you know how all that works and how you can get involved in tonight's show, let me introduce you to my co-host, Mr. Michael Bailey. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Steve. How's it going today?
Good, mate. And yourself?
I'm sure it's very cold where you are, which is the exact opposite of what I'm living through right now. So you got your hoodie on and everything. But we're not here to talk about weather. We always do. We're here to talk about Superman because this is WGBS Live. Because this is WGBS Live, we want to hear from the people that are watching us live right now on YouTube. So if we don't have a lot going on, and I really don't know how that Bendis talk is going to go, and we have some time, about halfway through the show, we'll start taking callers. And here's how that works. To do it, you're going to need Skype. Go to Skype, find Superman homepage, and message us that you'd like to be on the show. Now, a couple of things. One, message us. Wait for us to get in touch with you, because calling us can screw up this whole tin can with two Dixie cups tied between it, whatever that is that goes on. And if you use an external speaker to watch WGBS Live, please turn that down before we get you on the call, because we are on a bit of a delay, and that can screw things up really bad.
Yes, and for those tuning in live via YouTube, we ask you to get involved and be part of the show. And you can do that in a number of ways. One of them is up on the screen right now, but we'll get to that in a second. So to get involved, all you have to do is post your comments there on YouTube. Michael and I will refer to those as the show goes on. Also, if you want to get involved and you want your comment featured live on screen like we have right now from Venkman, then all you have to do is use the Super Chat feature. Now, all you do is you click on the dollar bill symbol in the chat screen. A slider will appear on your screen. You decide on a dollar amount that you're prepared to donate to the show, and we'll feature your comment or question on screen. And a huge thank you to our sponsors and patrons, Douglas Meacham, John Patrick Van Pelt, and Tina Murray. We appreciate your support. So, Mike, what's been new in your world as of the beginning of this week? We got together last week. We spoke about a number of things, and now there's a lot of major news in the comic book world. But what's been happening with you and your neck of the woods?
I got promoted at work. I don't know how that's going to go.
Yay! That's nice.
Yeah, it's like Jonathan Winters, who's an actor and comedian here in the United States, said that showbiz is an excrement sandwich. The more bread you get, the less you taste the excrement. So maybe the raise in pay will make everything better. But no, it shouldn't really affect this at all. Yeah, I mean, we're still pandemicking and race riding all through 2020. So I'm kind of wondering what June's going to bring. This is going to be an interesting month, I have a feeling. So.
Indeed. Well, let's start off with movie news. I know that there is some breaking news in regards to the comic book side of things, as I mentioned at the top of the show, and as Venkman's comment there, the super chat that he's donated there. For once, major news did drop before tonight's show. We're usually finding these things happening after the fact, but after the show's continued. But we'll get on to that in a second. Superman the movie is obviously one of our favourite films, and a number of drive-in theatres and other theatres are promoting it or screening it this week. If you're in the Kentucky area, specifically in the Murray area of Kentucky, Cherry Theatre showing screenings of Superman the movie every day through June 11th of this week. So you'll be able to check out Superman the movie on 12:10 p.m., 3:40 p.m. and 7:05 p.m. daily. Just head to internet-ticketing thetheatrebooks.com. Tickets are only $6.50. Also, if you're in the area of Michigan, specifically the Muskegon area, then the Getty Drive-In Theatre has nightly screenings of Superman the movie every night through, again, till Thursday, June 11th at 9:15 p.m. each night. And those tickets are $5 each for all ages. And you can get your tickets available at the theatre box office or online through celebrationtheatre.com.
That's neat. Drive-in theater showing showing it in the afternoon though. I thought it had to be dark.
It's 9:15 p.m. that one.
Oh, 9:15. No, but
the other one was just a normal theater. It wasn't a drive-in.
Oh, okay. I was getting those. Okay, now that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it wouldn't be fun watching a daylight drive-in. That just probably would be a bit weird, especially if the sun's shining on the screen and it's.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny how drive-ins, where weird things happen, so people adapt. So people still want to go see movies. So drive-ins, which had been driven into extinction, are now suddenly coming back. It's
well, yeah. I mean, they're probably the only theater that you're able to go to at the moment. I heard there are some talks about others opening up soon or have opened up already, but
June 12th,
okay.
AMC theaters are talking. So,
there you go. So if you're still a bit skeptical about that and being in the confines of a theater, even if with social distancing and certain seats only being able to be sat in, a drive-in is perfect because you're only with the people that you came with, the people that you're already living with, and with car stereos these days being of pretty good quality, it's not a bad option.
Well, and to bet it even can go, like, have something that goes right to your phone. And then you can play that through the speakers in the car. So, yeah, I mean, there's adaptability. We humans will find ways to amuse ourselves, apparently.
Yeah, so. I mean, as Tina says, you probably still prefer to watch it at home with those people that are in your car because, let's face it, the whole idea of going and watch it on the big screen is to enjoy that experience with a larger group of people and, hear the claps and the laughter and that, which you don't get at home, into the same capacity as you do with a larger audience. So there is that to consider. But yes, if you want to see it on the big screen and it's something you haven't done, then those are your options for this week until Thursday.
But maybe I'll just put it on the big screen here at home. I've got like 15 different ways to watch it. So
True, indeed. All right, on the comic book side of things, before we get into some new stuff, this past week we saw Lois Lane number 11, and one of the comic books that was released. We're finally getting to the point where we do have new comic books that we can read both physically and digitally. And Lois Lane number 11 is the penultimate issue. There's just the 12th issue to go. And our reviewer, Mario Beniti, gave it a 3 out of 5, saying that he's hoping that this will wrap up in a satisfying manner. And he says it's been 11 issues and we've seemingly taken a sharp turn from political thriller to supernatural adventure. And having read this and being written by Greg Rucka, I'm kind of a little bit surprised that that this actually hasn't been better, knowing what I know of Rucka's writing style and his ability to write characters like Lois Lane.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed to hear. Well, not disappointed, but that's interesting to hear. I'm actually not surprised at the turn to supernatural because his Detective Comics run back in 2000 had kind of a supernatural element to it where people were turning into animals, essentially. So, hearing that, I'm just like, it's not too surprising. But on the other hand, I'm wondering if there was some kind of editorial interference, but Rucka doesn't seem to be the type of writer that does well with that. So it's going to be, at some point I will read Lois Lane, like down the road, maybe when it's in trade paperback form and I can get it cheap digitally. But it's kind of a little disheartening to hear that it's not ending on a high note.
We'll wait and see what the 12th issue delivers. But this is what is available this week from DC Comics for Superman fans. So let's go through the list of what comic books are out at the moment as of today. And we have Justice League number 46, which is available in a variant cover. We don't yet have the review of that up on the website, but that will be coming shortly. What we do have of a review of already is Legion of Superheroes number 6. And we have Superboy, Golden Lantern, Monster Boy, Dr. Fate, all there on the cover there. And that is also available in a pretty cool variant cover. Superboy getting a lot of attention in that image there. We also have available Lois Lane number 11, as I mentioned, and that is available in a really nice variant cover right there. And also out this week we have Superman Giant number 3, and then also available this week we have Infinite Crisis Omnibus New Edition hardcover. We have Super Friends Saturday Morning Comics Volume 1 hardcover, which looks pretty cool. And also out this week is Young Justice Volume 2 Lost in the Multiverse hardcover. And that is what's available from DC for Superman fans this week.
How many omnibuses are they going to release of Infinite Crisis? That's like the third.
Yeah, well, another new edition. I don't understand what is the what's so new about it. I guess if you probably go to Amazon, you'll probably see there's maybe a new intro or something along those lines.
Yeah, the second edition actually included more. The first edition basically had like the special, all the miniseries, the 4 miniseries, and then Infinite Crisis. The new edition actually included like the Crisis of Conscience series in JLA, the Sacrifice storyline, and more of the lead-in stuff. So it's a beefier thing. I'm wondering if they're going to do to this what they keep doing like to the Death of Superman, where every time they release a new omnibus, they put more stuff in it.
Yeah, also out this week, DC have continued their digital first publishing program, and the second issue of the Batwoman Supergirl World's Finest number 2 is available digitally already as well if you're into the digital first things. So that's what you can check out from DC Comics this week in comic book form for Superman fans. But there are a couple of big news items this week in the comic book side of things. Firstly, from a delivery point of view, distribution point of view, DC Comics officially announced that they've cut ties with Diamond Comic Distributors this week. And there was quite a bit of backlash across the industry with one particular comic book store or online thing having a DC Sucks sale.
Mile High Comics, yes.
Which I found quite interesting. And I know you have friends in the comic book industry as far as people who own stores. What's the kind of reaction out there from the ground?
I have not had a chance to talk to the owner of the store I go to, but there was an interesting discussion amongst some friends, some who are more business minded, some who have had experience with comic shops, that ranged from, well, this is how things go, to this is a terrible idea. And the main thing that I kept seeing pop up was it compared it to back in 95, which was 25 years ago, when Marvel just went exclusive with a distributor that they owned called Heroes World, which turned out to be a terrible, terrible, terrible idea, mainly because Heroes World was not set up to be a comic book distributor. From what I understand, they wouldn't have their own dedicated warehouse. They would work with other warehouses. So one day the people in that warehouse are packing up like linens and silverware, and the next day they're packing up people's comic book orders. So you would order 100 copies of X-Men and 2 copies of Cable, and end up with 100 copies of Cable and 2 copies of X-Men. So that just ended up being a terrible strain on comic shops. And you kind of have some of the similar problems here. I don't know who DC is going with. I'm hoping they're going with somebody that has some experience with distributing comics. But what it does is it shrinks down, or it causes more of a strain on the comic shop. The comic shop, when it was ordering through Diamond, had one distributor for their comics. So they had one distributor, one delivery, and the amount of comics they ordered meant more of a discount for them for their final bill. Now that discount gets smaller and you have double shipping costs. So yes, comic shops can adapt, but this just seems like I don't know how much warning comic shops got. And I saw some discussion how DC Comics doesn't really owe anything to the comic shops, and the comic shops should be able to adapt and be able to go with more than one distributor and all that. But in the middle of a pandemic, this is a complete and utter disruption. And it's just like you want something that you can kind of count on. It was scary enough when Diamond stopped shipping altogether. Now they have to figure out a whole new ordering system. Diamond had, through some comic shops, like a program that you went into and you ordered all your stuff, and it was kind of a pain to learn. But once you ordered it, it was super simple to place reorders and order trade paperbacks and stuff like that. And now you got to kind of start from scratch on that. It's such a weird decision to make right now, but I guess DC is trying to avoid what happened with Diamond shutting down by having a alternative source to go to.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, and I don't know the dynamics necessarily of how comic book stores get their comic books and what that means for them. Venkman in the comments is saying that comic shops now have to pay separate shipping for DC Comics, and if that's true, then that's obviously another added cost to an already strained industry. There are other people saying, look, Diamond Comic Distributors have had a monopoly for the longest time, and it hasn't always been as smooth sailing as most people are kind of indicating. So now DC are using Luna Distribution and UCS Comic Distributors for periodical releases, and then Penguin Random House for graphic novels and collected editions. So there's not a monopoly anymore on who distributes their comic books. And obviously there's probably a financial benefit to DC on this side of things. Anthony's asking, is this maybe an indication that DC are going to go completely digital? No, I wouldn't think that they would just come up with team up with these new distributors for a very, there would be a contract in place now for a number of years, or some kind of an agreement in place. It wouldn't be something that's only temporary.
Yeah, the Penguin Random House thing makes a lot of sense, especially since I think before, I could be wrong on this, and I'm sure people in the comments will correct me because, audiences are so helpful like that. But I believe before they had 2 channels for their trade paperbacks. They had like one that went to bookstores, and I don't think Diamond sent to like Books A Million or the other big chains. So now it's like one direct funnel to everything, which will probably help that company out amazingly. And maybe it'll be easier to order trade paperbacks at this point. I don't think you're ever going to see physical media go away completely. I am a believer in digital. I have adopted digital. They had a nice Superman sale last week, which was really weird because it was everything but Action Comics. Okay, but Supernatural, the comic based on the TV show, was part of the sale. So I'm just guessing that was a coding issue where they just put anything with super in the title. Managed to was put on sale from DC Comics, but since Action Comics didn't have super in the title, I don't know. I'm getting lost in the weeds here. I don't think physical media is ever going to go away.
No.
I think there is going to be always somebody that wants that. What is going to be interesting is to see what this does to the industry. We're going through a sea change. Anthony in the chat has brought up several times that this might be something from AT&T. I don't know how involved AT&T is wanting to get into DC Comics, but what AT&T seems to be doing, if you notice some of the announcements that Warner Brothers has made recently, is it seems like they're consolidating a lot more, whereas before Warner Brothers was this vast miasma of like different departments, and those departments didn't talk to each other. So, the TV side didn't talk to the comic side. You had to have like a filter to go through that, which is why when we got Legion on Smallville, it was like this huge deal and some like Faustian bargain that Jeff Johns had to make to make that happen. What I'm kind of hoping is if that's the case, I know this doesn't directly involve the distributors, but maybe things will get a little easier with the entertainment side of things. But as far as going through these different channels, I'm wondering what it's going to be like in the long term. I think DC would have looked at the mistakes that Marvel made when they went to Heroes World. And I think the other upside is I don't think DC owns Lunar distribution. So it's not like they're distributing it themselves. They've just gone with a different distributor. And frankly, as convenient as it was to have everything through Diamond, things can get kind of screwed up with Diamond.
Yeah. Well, some of the facts behind this are that in their last renegotiations with Diamond, DC put in a clause stating that they could, give 30 days notice about, deciding not to go to disconnect from them. And I think so the writing was kind of on the wall in some ways, I think, where that they had indicated that was something that they were going to do. And then when the pandemic happened and we saw them stop distributing and close down their warehouses, then I think we got to the point where DC went, you know what, this is probably the time where we can look at doing something different. Everything's on hiatus. Everything's on hold. Let's pull some other plans together and move in a different direction so that in the future, something like this doesn't happen to us, where we can have options available to us and streamline the industry as far as distribution is concerned, especially with the Penguin Random House deal for graphic novels and collected editions. They can still get those out if something happens with the periodical releases and direct market stuff.
Yeah, I have a friend who teaches finance at a university, and he said on several occasions that you're going to really look to businesses making decisions they've been wanting to make for a long time anyways, that will occur during the pandemic. Because everything's so up in the air. This is kind of the time to strike.
Yeah.
Whereas before, everything was just chugging along, and it was kind of it was the momentum was keeping it. Now that momentum has been completely shut down, it's the time to rethink things. And again, this is one of those things where I'm of two minds on it, because on one hand, I recognize that this is a business, and that small, mom and pop stores, it's kind of a risk whenever you put your time and money and energy into it, and this is how you're going to make your living. There's always a risk to doing that, so you should think about that before you get into it. On the other hand, I'm a little more of a softie and more of a bleeding heart, and I'm like, look, these people are the ones that put out your product. And it kind of sets up this kind of abusive relationship when the publishers are like, well, you're going to do what we want to do, and if not, you can just get out of town. It's just like, well, these are the people that have been supporting you for decades.
Yeah.
It's not comic shop owners' fault that publishers relied so heavily on them as other distribution chains started drying up. Grocery stores, convenience stores don't want comics for the most part, because when you're in a store and you're looking at like just like even up near the front register especially, but every bit of that store is real estate. And that real estate has to make the owner of that business money. And if they aren't making money with comics, they're going to ditch those in a hurry and bring in stuff that they do make money on. So that's why you've seen, or at least over here in the States, you've seen like magazine sections at grocery stores shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink, because that doesn't bring in money for them, but having another couple of miles of bread does. So
yeah,
it's one of those weird things.
It's a tricky one because they've obviously tried to delve into the wider areas of having comic books available, so like with the Walmart thing, trying to get comic books in front of different eyes, different audiences, and I think just the whole magazines, books, comic books, that whole industry is struggling at the moment because, as you said, magazines are just going the way of the dodo. People aren't reading their physical books as much as they used to now with Kindles and and iPads and things. And we've seen major book retailers disappear in the last couple of years. So the comic book industry, I think, has been surviving for the longest time on their television and movie popularity. And there's some writing on the wall for what might happen with the comic book industry, especially with specialty stores, in the next couple of years. It's we've seen over the last 20 years comic book stores diminish drastically, and it's only the major ones who are able to supply not just comic books but the statues and the other high-end collectibles that are maintaining a business, and some of them through this pandemic have struggled greatly, and this is just kind of another difficulty that they have to face.
Yeah, again, it's you businesses are just built on uncertainty, but there are certain things you could kind of depend on, and now shops have to kind of rethink everything. And it was really interesting to see the creative side of comics like just have a complete meltdown on social media over this. I think I only saw like one or two positive comments, but everyone else seemed to just be nope, like wanting to nope right out of there, I guess is the best way to say that. So it's just it's funny because, again, it's not like this is the first time this has happened in the comic industry, but the comic industry is in even worse shape than it was back in 1995. And in 1995, it was in pretty bad shape. So it's...
We'll wait and see.
Weird.
It'll be interesting times ahead. All right, we're at the halfway point of tonight's show. When we come back after these messages, we're going to be talking about the announcement that Michael Bendis made in regards to his time writing the Superman comic books. We'll be back right after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
We'll be back in a moment with the exciting climax of today's episode. So stand by.
Look, up in the sky.
It's a bird.
It's a plane. No, it's SupermanHomepage.com, the #1 Superman fan site in the world. SupermanHomepage.com, covering the world of Superman from the 1930s to today. News, reviews, rumors, and reports. SupermanHomepage.com for all your Superman comics, TV shows, movies, cartoons, radio shows, and more. Everything you ever wanted to know about the Man of Steel and more. SupermanHomepage.com.
Thanks, Superman homepage, for all the support over the years. I really appreciate it.
I'm Matt Balmer. I'm the voice of Superman and Superman Unbound, and this is the Superman homepage.
Right here on Superman homepage.
When Lex Luthor unleashes his plan to destroy the world, you can be just like Superman. With a Superman Returns in Play-Doh suit, you can pretend to have all the muscles of a Man of Steel. Then, strap on the punch and crush gloves to hear the sound of every punch you throw and everything you crush. In Play-Doh suit accessory, you put it together, batteries not included, punch and crush gloves sold separately. And when trouble hits the skies, you'll be ready with a Fight and Fly FX cape with real flying sounds. This cape responds to every move you make, whether you turn left or right to save the day.
And we're back on WGBS TV Live, where if you want to get involved in the show, find us on Skype, and we will get back to you and just message us saying that you want to be part of the show, and we will endeavour to get you on to tonight's program. And thank you to all the people using the Super Chat method to donate to the show and get your messages up. And Venkman, again, every time we go for a break, after these messages, we'll be right back. Always.
Actually, that's after these messages. We'll be right back. It's an actual jingle. Yeah, there's a tune to it. So.
Okay. Very cool. All right.
He paid the money. I figured I'd give him a song.
As we mentioned before the break, Brian Michael Bendis has announced via a David Harper's off-panel podcast. He says, "I'm heading towards the end of my run on Superman. So I've been more reflective on it, and I'll never be more grateful than I got to heal my near-death experience through Superman and then get through this pandemic." And now, just quickly, before anyone wonders what's the near-death experience that he went through, he did have a MRSA infection that went septic, and then he saw him spend nearly a month in hospital and multiple visits to the ICU. And so that was at the time when he was coming on board to write Superman, or contemplating the idea from DC's offer to come on board and move away from Marvel and join DC as a writer. And that was back in late 2017. And he defected from Marvel, came on board DC, has been since then writing Superman and Action Comics, as well as other things like Legion of Superheroes. And his run, to be fair, has received mixed reviews from fans. There's a lot who have just dumped it because they're not happy with where he went with it, including somebody sitting right next to me.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
And probably the biggest thing that he did that caused a lot of controversy was the fact that he's outed Clark Kent as Superman. The secret identity is no longer a thing. The world now knows that Superman and Clark Kent are one and the same. How another writer, a new writer, whoever that might be, might put that genie back in the bottle when they come on board is up for speculation, remains to be seen. What happens? We will get a reboot, a soft reboot. How much longer does Bendis have? All these questions remain unanswered at this point in time. But I've got to say, the hits to our website went through the roof today just because we posted this announcement.
This image of like the first post-Bendis issue of Superman or Action Comics has the cover to the issue where he reveals the identity, and the second page is Mr. Mxyzptlk throwing the book down, going, "I gotta fix this again." At least that's how I do it. I got a lot of hits on my phone today. Because, you know, when you're somebody that likes Superman, and when everyone knows you like Superman, and when everyone knows you really weren't happy with how Bendis was doing things, there, you know, it's just, I guess they wanted to share this with me, and I really appreciate that. My first and most powerful reaction was, I'm not happy that he's leaving. I'm not happy in the way I wouldn't be happy surviving a hurricane. Because, yeah, I survived, but now I got to deal with all the fallout. I got to deal with all the damage. And with him revealing the identity, and then like a year later, go, bye guys, see you later. It's just like, what was that all for? And if it was something that DC wanted him to do and he did it, he accomplished that, then that's fine. If this is the plan going in and they're still going ahead with the 5G thing, where there's going to be another Superman, then it kind of makes sense that he would be ending his run. But if they're going to have any kind of normal, this Superman continuing his adventures, I'm just kind of wondering, it puts other writers in a bad spot. And this is a thing that I don't think enough comic book writers really think about. And it sounds arrogant to say that, because I'm not a comic book writer. I've never been a comic book writer, so I don't know exactly what the job entails. But from a reader standpoint, when a writer comes in and kills a character or changes the status quo and then leaves that mess behind, it seems really unfair to the next guy, because you're not going to be the last guy to write Superman. So, can they not hear me?
Yeah, I think the volume went low, but no, I can hear you.
Okay. You're basically leaving, you've come in, you've broken all the toys, and then you're leaving the next writer with a bunch of broken toys. So it's one of those things where either it is a new direction the company's going in, and maybe they will do like this new Superman thing that they were kind of hinting at, like a new Superman, a new Batman, whatever. And this seems like a way to get to that. But man, I don't really envy the next people coming on to Superman in action after Bendis, if that's the direction they're going to go into.
Yeah, well, let's wait and see how Bendis, what he does to leave what status quo he leaves the books in. I don't imagine that secret identity thing will change before he leaves, because that's something he believes very much in, that there's no need for secret identities anymore. But I don't know how much longer he has and what kind of stories there are to tell in the future. I imagine the September solicitations coming up may reveal something more, and we'll be talking about something that a new character that they've got coming up in September. But who was it in the comments? I think it's Mind the Gap saying maybe Tom Taylor finally gets that Superman book. Maybe he gets to finally write a positive Superman. If anybody can put things back the way fans would like them, Tom Taylor would probably be my man too.
Yeah, I would like to see that. It's really weird that they bring that up, because I was literally thinking today, because with everything going on, I was reminded of I always get it right. It's Valzad that was in Earth 2? I get Lorzod and Valzad mixed up as names. And I was just like, well, that was Tom Taylor writing that. And I was like, yeah, that's the one where Superman was all like evil and Lois Lane was a red tornado robot. And then he wrote him in Injustice and in Deceased. It's just like, I just want this guy to get a chance to write the Superman, like a straightforward Superman story. And here's the other question. And I'll put this to you. I'm going to put you on the spot with this. Do you think we're ever going to go back to having any kind of status quo with Superman now that all these changes have been made? Or are we just going to get a series of runs that are akin to like the digital firsts that they've been doing, where there is no like ongoing subplots and stuff? It's just a story about Superman and his world, and if he's married to Lois, not married to Lois, if Lex Luthor's a businessman, if he's a mad scientist, like that doesn't matter as long as the stories are good. Are we at that point with comics again?
If we are, I wouldn't be disappointed. Continuity has been something that fans, it's been a catchphrase that fans have worshipped and bowed down to for far too long. We've been so concerned with, is this in continuity? Where does this fit in? Is this between issues 3 and 7? Or we're so worried about getting everything in a timeline that we've become a slave to it. Where, if anything, the giants and the digital first things that we've been seeing have been so good, and the stories in them have just been so well received because we haven't been tied down to anything. You can just pick it up and read it and enjoy it as a Superman comic book without going, I'm confused, where are we? And I think that's a good thing because comic book readers have aged. You know, the age of the average comic book reader is 30s, 40s. I mean, you and I, we've grown up from the 90s reading, late 80s, reading the, John Byrne thing and just continued on. And I don't know if there are much newer generation readers that have come onto the books the way we did back in that day. So they're not going to invest their time in reading comic books week after week, week after week, week after week, where if they could just pick up a story here or there, especially a downloadable one that doesn't necessarily tie into anything else and just enjoy it for what it is, they're going to come on board and be more likely to read comics moving forward.
It's actually very similar to what I was thinking, and it's odd. Even before the Bendis announcement, I was thinking about this morning. Is that, and I say this as somebody that's kind of retired, semi-retired, because like vampirism and farmers, you never completely leave being a comic book collector, I don't think. But I was thinking about it that not these past like 6 months or so where I haven't really bought a new Superman comic or been to the shop to get the next issue because I'm really excited, that I'm in a different headspace than somebody that's still invested in the game, that still loves the weekly trip, that loves seeing these stories develop. So I'm saying this as somebody who's on the other side of the collecting bubble. But I just really think that the era in which I started reading Superman, one, probably went farther than it should. I think we as fans held on to it and kept it precious maybe too long, so that when it finally changed, we were just angry about it. But I also think that the modern comic book collector, the people getting into it because they see the shows on the CW or they go to the Marvel movies or whatever, they're not going to invest as heavily as we did. It's not, one, there's a cost to it. Back in 1999, we could buy all of the Superman books for $8. Now, and that was 4. Now you can get $8 worth of Superman books a month, but you only get 2 books. And because you had all that time and because you had all that real estate, you could really develop the side characters. You could develop subplots. You don't have that anymore. So it's almost like, let's tell the best stories we can and try to stay true to the characters instead of constantly rebooting and going back to like, well, no, Crisis does count again. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. Swear to God, read the first issue, the 0 issue to Convergence, and read DC Rebirth #1 or Doomsday Clock, and it's like they keep going back to the same well. And I'm just kind of wondering now, why don't we get the best writers possible, the best artists possible, the people that want to tell Superman stories, get them to write Action Comics and keep that as like the one that's published monthly, but have like a rotating thing on Superman, and just have one book that has a continuity and another book that just tells good stories.
That sounds like a great idea.
And see where that goes, because then you have a book for the audience that wants the serialized fiction. I loved the thing that got me into reading Superman is I fell in love with the serialized nature of how the comics were being told. Some people don't like that. I've heard people go back and read old issues of Superman, and they're like, why do I care about this? And I'm like, why don't you care about Jerry White? But I then take a step back and go, no, Mike, they're not you. This isn't all. It's not all about you, Mike. But if you give people like that don't want to have the regular books, but they're like, oh, I heard that this new Superman miniseries is really good, like with Robert Venditti and Paul Pelletier drawing it. You give them that, they get what they want out of it, and it's kind of like the best of both worlds.
It sounds like a great idea to me. I think that, and then they would have comparison sales that they'd be able to go, which is going better? Is it Action, that's the serialized ongoing thing, or is Superman the standalone kind of 2-part, 3-part stories selling better, and gives them an indication of where things are at? I hope someone's listening to your idea.
I think. Well, no. I mean, I don't know. I've kind of said insulting things about everybody at DC at some point or another. But yeah, let's go.
All right. So as I mentioned, in September we do have Bendis still writing the books, Superman number 25 and Action Comics 1025, and I believe the solicitations will probably come out next week sometime. But let's just have a look at the cover reveals for those two particular books, and we have Superman number 25, a colossal new threat to Superman, the planet Earth, and the DC Universe arrives on the scene in this extra-sized anniversary issue. This unique warrior called the Sinmar was created to represent an entire alien race. He's trained his entire life, but for what purpose? As the antithesis of everything Superman stands for, Sinmar launches his aggression toward Earth to destroy the Man of Steel and every being on the planet. This is what Superman was born to protect us from. Sorry, but doesn't this sound like Rogol Zar all over again?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, how many times... This is the problem with being in the game so long, is that a new reader going, oh, this is the villain that Superman was destined to fight all along. And it's just like, I got like 15 action figures in the other room that were the guy that, like Conduit at one point was the villain that Superman was always destined to fight. And yeah, Conduit now is, to some, is a punchline. I still kind of like the character. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I realize that these solicitations have to have that kind of,
selling,
like,
marketing.
Like you want somebody from like doing a trailer voice. It's like, in a world. So, I get that, but man, every time I read that, I'm like, I've read that so many times in my life.
Then you have Action Comics 1025. Welcome to the House of Kent. Superman's truth is out there, and now it's time to rewrite the rules. The Invisible Mafia has taken advantage of the chaos that's descended on Metropolis, so the House of Kent is going to talk to them in a language they'll understand. It's a new adventure featuring Superman like you've never seen him or them before, in a story guest starring Supergirl and two Superboys. And, I read Action Comics this past month, last week I think it was, where the two Superboys met, John Kent and Connor Kent met, and it was phenomenal. I absolutely loved the issue, and especially when Connor went back to meet the Kents on the Kent farm, and they remembered him, and it was just like, we don't know how. Man. It was just like, this was so cool.
I'm almost tempted to read it. I really am. That got through to my cold dead heart. What I want to know is, what song are they singing on that cover? Because they are belting out. It's got to be like a Jim Steinman Meatloaf song that they're getting. I mean, is this like a new version of Every Man Has a Job to Do from the Superman musical? I mean, there's two singing. This is why I don't do it very often, folks.
That's why the money just keeps pouring in tonight.
Making it rain. Tip your wait staff. I just have to admit, even though I'm like, the idea of the Kents remembering Connor makes me want to burst into tears right now.
Now, they can't figure out what this guy's name is, this new villain, because in the solicitations it's spelled Synmar, Sinmar or Signmar. But then Bendis in a quote calls him Cinemar. So it's Synamar. And it does that twice. And so I'll be interested to see just how it is written in the books, because cinema sounds like, the theatre. And then you got Sinmar, which is kind of like playing on the sin part of his name. I don't know.
Cinemar right. Sounds like he had a Cinnabon booth at like the mall, and it just, because malls keep dying, he kept losing business, so now he's a villain. It's the worst origin ever, but I'm going to keep going with it.
So, and both of these books are still written by Michael Bendis, and they come out in September. And you still got art and cover by John Romita Jr. on Action Comics, where Ivan Rice and Joe Prado are doing the art on Superman number 25. So the full solicitations will probably come out in a week's time, so keep an eye out for them. All right.
That is the only problem with that cover, by the way, is that it's Romita doing the art on it, and it just doesn't look good.
No, I agree with you there. Now, interesting, an auction that's available at the moment if you're into wanting to raise money for the Black Lives Matter movement, and as part of Gail Simone's Comic Writers Challenge, there is a page from All-Star Superman that Tom King is donating to this Black Lives Matter auction. It's a page from what he calls the greatest comic story, one of the greatest comic stories of all time, All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, and he's auctioning off this original artwork page from that comic book series.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that one of the only positives that has really come out of what's been happening is that I'm seeing a lot of organizations wanting to do something. And, we've got the All-Star Superman artwork being put up for auction for Black Lives Matter. Jim Lee is going to be auctioning off some of his X-Men artwork for the same purpose. And it's just like, I go back to, we should have fixed this 50 years ago. We should have definitely fixed this 5 years ago when the same thing happened, and we just keep making the same mistakes. But the fact that so many people are trying to do something positive, it's the only thing that's really giving me any kind of hope right now.
The current bid for this is $2,500, and the bidding ends on Friday, June 12th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're interested, get involved. Look for the hashtag Comic Writers Challenge. And people are commenting and mentioning in the comments that there is a new... I haven't really got into the Dark Knight's death metal stuff, but DC announced that there are 3 one-shots coming out in September as well. And here is the cover for those right now. You've got Dark Knight's death metal Trinity Crisis. You have written by Scott Snyder with art and cover by Francis Manipool. Hits shelves 8th of September. You've got Dark Knight's death metal Speed Metal, which is written by Joshua Williamson with art by Eddie Barrows and Eva Ferreira. Howard Porter cover there, September 22nd. And you've got Dark Knight's death metal Multiverse's End, which is written by James Tynion IV with art by Juan Gideon and a cover by Michael Golden, and that's available September 29th.
Yeah, I just never got into the metal stuff.
Yeah.
The fact that they're having so many different variations of this, and I'm hoping Multiverse's End is kind of like the signal that this is kind of wrapping up. But if people are enjoying it, they'll keep doing it until like the wheels fall off, essentially.
Yeah. So if you want more details on those, head to our website. The full solicitation information for those is up on our site as we speak. All right, Michael, let's jump into the This Week in History. I'll play your intro for you right now.
Come with me now, my son. as we break through the bounds of your earthly confinement, traveling through time and space.
So now we're going to play the game that is going to thrill the nation, and that is, will Mike and Steve have the same images for what's going on? So starting in, if I could pull this up, we're going to go to 1950 with World's Finest number 111, and we may have talked about this last week. It's kind of weird. But you got Superman sitting on a throne, and there is nothing about this that is culturally sensitive at all right now, in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But World's Finest books tend to do that. We're going to jump ahead to 1970, where we have Jimmy Olsen, number 131. Looks like this is one of those 80-page giant reprint books, showing how crazy Jimmy Olsen was over the previous decade. Also, you had Justice League of America number 82.
You
which
mean
has
182? Oh, 82.
180.
Yeah, no, 82.
No, 82, yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Which was part of the JLA-JSA crossover that year. Has a really cool double cover there where the Earth 2 versions of the characters are being attacked, so their sort of Earth 1 counterparts are also being attacked. But you also have World's Finest number 195.
Hang on. Venkman's asking, can you read this part as Bibbo?
Which part?
What you're doing now.
Okay, we got Kurt Kent. No, I cannot keep that up. Next week, I swear to God, the next time I'll write it out and plan it out. But, I appreciate that. I'll do a couple of them. Okay, so next up we got World's Finest Comics number 195. This is a great cover with Jimmy Olsen and Robin digging Superman and digging their graves. So that looks... I don't know why my favorite's having him do that, but I'm sure he's got a reason. We're going to jump to 1980. We have DC Comics Presents number 25, where Superman teams up with the Phantom Stranger, that dude with the fancy medallion. I don't know if he's trying to be a hippie or anything. But I think I fought a guy like that once when I was in the Army. You also got, from the same year, Justice League of America number 182, which is, I think, what Steve was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
This apparently has an elongated man backup feature, because this was the time period where DC had the 8 pages in the back. You also have Superman number 351, which has that Mr. Mixoplick. I'll just call him Mixoplick. And like floating heads chasing Superman.
The Fiend with the 9 faces.
Yeah, that's... I'm going to break character for a second. That's creepy. That is really creepy.
Mike says you sound more like Dan Didio.
No, that would be Superman Family number 203, which has a bunch of different storylines in it.
Where is it?
I don't know if this is the issue, but there is an issue of Superman Family where Earth 2 Clark Kent's getting frisky with Lois in the car, and I'll never be able to unsee that.
Oh, I don't have that one. Damn.
I think at this point, this is when Superman Family went monthly.
Oh, okay, so I do.
We're going to jump ahead to 1990. Superboy the comic book, which was the comic book that was associated with the television series. This is Superboy number 7, written by Mark Waid. I love this issue. It is really good. It has a really good twist at the end. And also that same month, in the same week, World's Finest number 1, which was a prestige format miniseries that came out, which was drawn by Steve Rude, written by Dave Gibbons. I remember that being a huge deal. I think that is it for comics, because I really couldn't find any. 2000... Sorry, I didn't have it pulled up. There was an issue of Superman that teamed up with Green Lantern, and the fact that I remember vividly buying that and realizing now that was 20 years ago. Did that issue of Superman come out this week? Wow, I didn't see that. That's a cool one. It has Superman teaming up with Jade and Obsidian from Infinity Incorporated against the newish then Terra Man. God, that was a good character. But we're rapidly running out of time here. So, looking into the real world real quick, on June 10th, John Byrne presents a new Superman in 1986 with the release of Man of Steel number 1. On June 11th, Sherman Howard, Lex Luthor, in the Superboy TV series, was born in Chicago, Illinois in 1949. And on June 13th, we have a double dose of death with Danny Dark and Lane Smith dying on different years.
And don't forget, June 12th is Superman Day across the world.
Yes, it is.
So make sure you're doing something special wearing a Superman shirt. But that brings us to the end of tonight's show. We're a little bit over time, but we appreciate everyone tuning in to WGBS TV Live. We want to thank all our sponsors, Tina Murray, John Patrick Van Pelt, and Douglas Meacham for their support. Thank you to everyone in the YouTube comments, especially all the donators with the Super Chats tonight. Really appreciate your involvement and your support. We'll be back next week on Tuesday, June 16th for another edition of WGBS TV Live. We look forward to talking with you then. Until then, be sure to check out supermanhomepage.com for all your daily news updates on everything surrounding the Man of Steel. And thank you to my co-host, Mr. Michael Bailey. Thank you, Mike.
Sure as always, Steve.
So we'll be back next week. Until then, as I said, check out the website. But thanks tonight for watching WGBS TV Live, brought to you by supermanhomepage.com.